One afternoon, Toby was slowly reversing into the open shed. "Toby," Grant going, "what have you been taking?" "Glad you asked, Gordon. I've been taking Farmer McColl's cattle to market," Toby answered. He was not aware of his surroundings. "Gordon meant you're smoking," James corrected. "Don't be silly, James. We all smoke. That's what makes us move." Everyone began to cough. Get outside, Henry coughed. You're making us suffocate. Now, Toby noticed. "Oh dear, I'm sorry. I don't mind sleeping outside. Hope you'll feel better." Thomas had seen the whole scenario without saying a single word until he broke the silence. "Do you think Toby's okay?" he asked. "I believe it's time that Toby should retire," Gordon mumbled. "He's starting to have problems like Henry had before." "Do I think he needs Henry's special coal?" "Thomas," Henry explained, "the special coal that I had won't cut it. Coal is dirty, and from what I've seen, his system is aging. There are no other tram engines like Toby anymore, as they've all been scrapped. His firebox may no longer burn the coal properly, and would enter the smoke box. And, with or without a spark arrestor, the bad smoke occurs. Or worse, spark and catch fire." Thomas was speechless. He began to think about how to save one of his best friends throughout the night. The next day, Thomas passed through Henry's forest. He was delivering Percy's mail because Percy was punished for his actions. Thomas passed Toby, going through the forest. Toby was still releasing bad smoke, and then... "Cinders and ashes," thought Thomas. "If it gets worse, he'll set the forest on fire." "Toby, what are you doing on the main line?" he asked. "I'm off to visit Percy. Figured he needs some company," Toby said. Little did he know that the sparks from Toby landed on the grass. At the Eastern Big Station, Thomas dropped off the last of the daytime mail. "That's the last of it," said Thomas to the coaches. "I'll pick up more mail tomorrow night." "Also," he continued, "did any of you two know about Toby puffing badly?" "We don't really know about Toby that much," they said. Thomas felt exhausted. He knew he had to figure out how to fix Toby's problem. When Thomas was heading for the journey back, the sky suddenly turned dark. "What's happened to the sky?" he asked. Then he soon found the answer. Henry's forest was on fire! Trees, bushes, and grass were burning furiously. "Call the fire department," Thomas demanded to the nearest signalman. "I've already done it. I've also shut down the railway lines through here until it's safe," shouted the signalman to Thomas. It was bad to breathe here, so the signaler evacuated the signal house and jumped into Thomas's bunker. Once the fire was put out, the forest burned to shambles. Thomas was upset. All he could see was nothing but bare bones. No wildlife, no vegetation, no ambience. It was all empty, with only the wind blowing. Henry's going to be beyond depressed when he hears this. his driver whimpered. Later, Thomas came back towards the sheds feeling unhappy. He was afraid to answer why because Henry was present, and knowing exactly what Henry would feel. When Thomas had enough courage to answer, he still struggled. Henry, your forest... Come on, Thomas, out with it. Is gone. And Thomas was right. My forest, the place I usually comfort myself? No, it can't be gone. I'm sorry about what that forest meant to you. It was all burned in a fire. Now I have no place to go, moaned Henry. All the engines looked at both Henry and Thomas, sharing the same emotion. Sir Topham Hatt began to take notice. I'm deeply sorry about what happened to your forest, Henry. Unfortunately, the railway cannot afford to purchase new trees to replant them in the same area. Now, that made Henry feel worse than last night. Please, sir, Thomas demanded, you must help plant new trees. If the forest remains nothing, Henry will be put out of service indefinitely. Perhaps, maybe my driver could help? I'm unsure about that, he answered. I doubt that will happen. If that's the case, then I'll relocate Henry elsewhere until further notice. Now, Thomas had two issues going on. First Toby, and now Henry. Whatever's next. Rumors about the railway shutting down? Thomas struggled to figure out and retain his sanity. He overthought about them so much, he even got himself a headache. Take a break if you need to, Thomas, recommended his driver. Please, driver, could you help with the railway to replant Henry's forest? Thomas said, almost bursting into tears. And he explained everything just as before. Tell you what, his driver had an idea. We'll set up a fundraiser. When we put up posters, people can help fund the railway to plant new trees. Once the goal is reached, Henry will be able to collect the new trees from the docks. Thomas felt a lot better, although he had to speak to Sir Topham Hatt for approval. And he did. With the fundraiser in place, people began to donate money in need of Henry. It took a long time for their goal to reach. As it did, the railway brought over a gargantuan shipment of tree saplings. However, he and his driver ran into another problem. What would happen to the remaining wood from the aftermath? The wood looks pretty burnt, so I think hang on, driver, I'm thinking. With much consideration, Thomas had finally solved the problem. Driver, we can use all this leftover wood for Toby, Thomas answered, remembering what Henry had said. Since coal is sturdy and pollutive, wood is a renewable source of energy. That way, Toby can breathe properly and be less pollutive. However, unlike us tank engines, he can't travel very far, so he'll be strictly on mine and his branch lines. That's a brilliant idea, agreed his driver. A few days later, Thomas talked to Henry. Henry was mourning over the loss of his forest. Hello, Henry. There's a surprise waiting for you. Sir Topham Hatt wants you to collect it right away. For me? Asked Henry. Definitely. We've been anticipating it. Henry was thrilled to see a ginormous line of flatbeds loaded with tree saplings. Cranky the Crane was also excited. Look at those baby trees, he said. In a year, they'll grow up so fast. And they'll remain stuck just like you, Henry teased. Cranky felt embarrassed afterwards. Henry puffed away with all the trees needed to be planted. Good luck, Henry, cheered Salty as Henry steamed by. During the process of the trees planted, Thomas took away the old stumps and wood for Toby. In no time, with the wood burning inside the firebox, Toby felt a lot better. Thank you, Thomas, smiled Toby. I didn't know I had problems like Henry. I hope this makes you feel better, Thomas replied. Now Thomas felt more happy than he'd solved the long-term problems with Toby and Henry. Henry, meanwhile, with much anticipation, enjoyed the peace of his forest once again. "Thank you for everything," Henry whispered to the nature around. His forest is something he and the others will never forget.